pick your browsers as well, just like what you have today.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So you talked about KVM and but let's talk about packaging and publishing.
Sure. Okay, cool. So let me
let's hit the slide real
I'll
quick.
show you. Okay.
Just as a bookmark for our friends.
No problem. Yep.
All right. So packing and publishing.
Right. So now this is the section where we'll talk about packaging and publishing. So very briefly, I'll show you that we have some command line tools for this, and then I'll show you what's the experience from Visual Studio, and then kind of give you a hint of what's going to be coming next.
Cool. And then Lewis is going to dig into some of the command line stuff, so don't worry, we will cover this. But with you, I want to focus on some of the cool stuff that's in Visual Studio that's going to make this easier.
Okay, so let me just skip over the command line part, but if you wanted to publish a project from the command line, you'd use KPM pack, and then Lewis will show you that.
Okay.
Let me show you, I think I have another.
You owned publishing tools in Visual Studio, didn't you?
I do, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely, publishing is definitely one of my sweet spots, you know? So right now for ASP.NET 5, we're supporting Azure websites and file system. We will have generic MS Deploy support. It's actually generic already, but you need a new version of MS Deploy, which none of the hosters have installed. So,
what about like publishing to IIS? Which one of these would that be?
You would just import it there at that point and just create the profile manually.
Okay.
Yeah, but later on, we'll have all the same different options as what we had before.
Okay.
Yep. So in this case, let me just publish out to the file system. So I'm just going to create a web publish profile. Let's create a new folder here that we can publish to. All right, publish. And then let's create a new folder here. So I'll say MVA. Okay, and we'll just publish this folder here.
And publishing is more than just copying stuff into a folder. This is what's interesting to me, because this is it's build, it's packaging, it's reconciling all the dependencies. It's quite a bit more than just if people think, oh, this is just copying of files over there.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely build, and and then it will transform your project to where it's ready to be hosted on IIS. With that being said, Visual Studio is really relying on KPM pack. So kind of think about it in this sense. So Visual Studio, the publish, will basically, Visual Studio Publishing will call KPM pack, and then it will take the outputs of that, and then just transport that over whatever transport protocol that you had. So MS Deploy, file system, FTP. But we're really relying on that KPM pack, and then we just take the folder, and then the publish settings, and then we just publish that. So let me show you how that works. So I just created a file system profile and then click the publish button. If I were to go back up towards the top of this.
There's a lot of MS Build stuff there.
Yeah, you know, this actually, for normal people, they wouldn't see all this.
You've turned on a lot of debug, I think.
Yeah, so in my options menu, under projects and solution, I've just turned this to detailed. So if you had it set on minimal, you'd get a much user-friendly, you'd get something that much more
but you're the guy that builds this stuff, so I can see why you'd want detailed.
Yeah, no, these messages are definitely very important to me. But if I could, if I was on minimum, we would see that it's calling
it'd be about right there.
KPM pack. Yeah, it'd be somewhere here. But that's okay.
But look at that. Hang on, though. Look at the bottom there. Publishing file ef.cmd, gen.cmd, web.cmd.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was going to show you.
Great
So
minds.
now
Great minds.
We've got the command files here, so I'm going to go into. Just get a reset. Oops, sorry. All right, so now if I wanted to run it, I can just execute these commands. Oh man.
Yeah, I think
this is where that.
You have a local build problem.
It's a my path is.
Maybe KU's default. KU's default.
I don't think so.
And then try it again. Oh.
No, it's something else.
No worries. But I think
try it from a normal command prompt, it might actually work. But
okay.
But for people who just have the regular.
Who aren't running dailies, I think.
Yeah, who are not running the daily stuff, this is totally going to work for them. Oh man, yeah, it's some like weird path issue going on.
It's okay. So go back over to the folder there and let's talk about this. So ef.command, gen.command. Go ahead and open up web.command for me in Notepad. So see what that's doing. It's actually from the current folder. It's going into the packages folder where all your NuGet packages are, and it's calling the the runtime there. It's the hosted, the thing that hosts ASP.NET.
Yep.
And then if you scroll to the right a little bit,
And then it just tells where your app is.
here's where the app is, and it's hosted here, and then there's your
These are the
web.
parameters that were inside project.json.
So then if I made test, like we talked about, theoretically test, we would get a test.cmd.
Yep.
And all of that gets wrapped up. So if you go ahead and close Notepad and go over into your packages folder there, go up. Yeah, there you go, app root, packages. It brought in all of the dependencies. And this is what we mean when we say you get your own custom .NET framework, basically, don't you? Like, this is exactly what you wanted. Self-contained, no more, no less. Just those. It didn't copy the entire .NET framework over, just what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's right.
And then if you go into app root, then really briefly, I can see in packages that you've got your own, the KVM, the Core CLR beta 2 and beta 1 there, the ones that you wanted to use.
Right. Yep.
Copied over here. And when Scott Hunter at the very beginning talked about how your version of your application won't hurt someone else's, you can now deploy this to Azure or IIS or whatever on someone else's machine and not worry about messing up anybody else.
Yep. Yeah, because you're just loading from that particular file, and you're not modifying any shared files or anything like that. Yeah, exactly.
Out of curiosity, just for my education, if you go up one more, how big is the packages folder right there?
For app root?
Yeah, let's just look at how big that is.
Probably like 40 megs, I would imagine.
I think it's probably a little bit. Oh, wow, 25 megs. So your own kind of private, just what I need version of the .NET Framework, 25 megs in this example.
In this particular example, yep.
That's pretty sweet.
It's not bad. I mean, it definitely fits on every SD card that I have or thumb drive, There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, let's, the next section is selecting a CLR, and you've been having some trouble with your command line. Do you want to try switching over to mine?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's try that real quick. So I'm going to do a little beep, boop, bop, boo here. Click, click, click. And we're going to switch over to my giant tablet, which I've just been using to play Angry Birds up until now.
Right. Now that I see both of us in the screen, it's like Battle of the Beards.
Is it really a battle, though?
I'm not really trying that hard.
Mine's pretty gray.
Mine's grayer, dude.
Yeah, well, that's the tragedy, isn't it? All right. So here's my machine, and I'll bring up a more public version of the framework, right?
Right. Yep. Something that more people.
Yeah, this is what you all have,
exactly.
not daily build, and this will probably crash too, though. But
I'm sure.
Just to lower your expectations now.
That's still a daily build too. It's just been
no, I guess it's a day. It was just a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a good point. Okay, so I'm making a project here, and then at the same time, I will bring up a much too large font here. There we go. Okay, so there's my command prompt, and here's Web Application 16. Okay, and if I go to project.json, here's some commands, and there's a bunch of words that I'm not allowed to use, so I will not use those words. What am I allowed to use? I can't even think of words. Pants. Because I always get in trouble for saying things I'm not supposed to say. So here, whenever you change your project.json, of course, references changes there. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to say Publish, just like you did, File System, and I'll stick it on the desktop, we'll say. I don't actually...
It'll create it.
It'll create it for me? Oh, Pants does not exist. And then here you go. See?
Yep.
Right? Okay. Hit Publish. Now, while that's happening, now I have a tiny DOS prompt. I have a batch file called desktop. Everyone should have one. Now that's empty. Now it's full with Pants.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, exactly.
So site published, type Pants. There it is. And let's type Pants. See, look at that. So there is that. And then here, let's bring up a non-threatening competitive browser. And of course, everyone knows I Bing. 5001 or 5000? Let's try 5000.
It's one of the.
Oh, look at that. See?
Yep.
Boom.
Yeah, and that's using that self-contained CLR. It shouldn't be going outside of it at all to get anything.
And then to expand on that, because I have a little bit different system than you do, if I say KVM list, that's using this version of the beta, the CLR. And I've also set up some aliases here. Now, if I understand correctly, if it's called default, That's the one Visual Studio uses. Is that correct?
Right.
Right.
And then that's stored in a text file under your users directory.
You know, that's a great point. Let's go and look at that. So if I go to users, Scott, KRE.
Yeah, .kre. Yeah.
.kre. I can't type. KRE.
Right.
Alias.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yeah, and right now you're seeing a default, and it looks like you have a core as well.
I made one called core,
Right.
just to see what would happen, and I made that the core CLR. So then I can go and say kvm use core, but again, I don't have to do any of that because I can go back over here and just right-click properties, and that is my same list.
That's right. Yep. Yep. And so in the current version, Visual Studio will just directly use that default alias. We're thinking about creating a new alias for every version of Visual Studio. So there may be a Visual Studio 2015 alias that shows up later on.
Oh, that's an
There
interesting
might be a
idea.
2015.0.
So then I would be able to say kvm use, and then VS 2013 or 2015 or 2015 dot whatever.
15.0.
Yeah.
Probably. Yep. So that's what we're kind of thinking. So that way you know that what's the version that kind of goes along with Visual Studio. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. Let's go over here now and talk about NuGet and Project JSON. We'll keep using my machine for now while
Okay,
we have
sounds
stuff
good.
working. If that's okay with you?
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yep.
So here, we've got this dependencies folder here.
Right.
No, and then we've got references. What's the difference between these two?
Well, they're pretty similar. I guess I'd say the big difference is one of them has some history and the other one is pretty new to ASP.NET. But, conceptually, they're pretty similar, and I think in this particular build, we're seeing that dependencies and references are kind of split out.
It's kind of like client-side and server-side, and we'll talk in the next module about this client-side bit.
Yep.
Here, these I thought was really interesting, are this is a dependency chain, isn't it?
Yeah, if you take a look at it, one of the big differences from previous versions of ASP.NET and ASP.NET 5 is when you add a NuGet package, what does that do to your project? So in previous versions, if you install a NuGet package, when you install that package gets installed in your project, as well as every dependency that project has.
That package has.
Right, that package has. Yeah, sorry, that package has. So
Right.
The result is you'll do install package, and then maybe it adds 5 NuGet packages, and then it updates packages.config. So at the end of the day, you cannot tell the difference between packages which were explicitly added versus packages that came through as a dependency.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that. You'd add one, and then you go back later to look at your packages.config, and there's 20 new ones. You're like,
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then you just end up with a whole bunch of NuGet packages which your app may or may not be using.
Right.
So to resolve that problem, in project.json, you just add the top level dependency.
Okay.
And then any other dependency will automatically be brought in. So when you remove a dependency, there's nothing really to delete because its dependencies won't get loaded up.
Well, if I go, let me ask you this. If I go open file in Explorer here, and I go up a bit, where are my...
It's in a sibling folder to .kre. It's .kpm.
So I'm not actually kind of quote-unquote littering my system with a lot of those things anymore.
Yeah, like one time, this was about a year back, I've got these laptops and, I put SSDs in these laptops and, SSD can never have enough space until maybe just recently. But in either case, my SSD was always being, I was always running out of space on the hard drive, right? So I wrote this PowerShell script to just go and figure out all the bin folders and all the packages folders and then how much was it across my entire machine. I executed the script, and this was with the previous version, right? I executed it, not even exaggerating, it was like 9 or 10 gigs. And they're just the same
mostly
files
repetition.
copied over and over and over again. So now we have a consolidated folder where all NuGet packages for ASP.NET projects go to, and that's inside the users KPM folder.
Okay, but this is not, and forgive me, a global assembly cache.
No.
Even though it's global and it's a cache and there's assemblies in it.
Right. is no, yeah, because the GAC had, GAC, even though it was global and it was a
Right.
cache for assemblies, it actually had a lot more to it
Yeah.
than that too, like
And the
policies
GAC was for runtime and policies and stuff like that. This is literally just, let's put all the NuGets in one place.
Yep,
so we save space.
if you delete those files, next time you do a restore, they will just be downloaded.
Oh, really?
again.
Oh, okay.
And I actually recommend people to go through and delete this folder every once in a while.
Just tidy up.
If you've had like previous versions of Visual Studio installed, and
Well, yeah. Well, look
if you're
here.
installing multiple versions, just delete that folder every once in a while.
If I go here and I say ASP.NET MVC, I can see I've got older builds there.
Yep, and yeah, you definitely want to go through and get rid of those.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. So if I went here and I said JSON, could I go and do this? Would this work? Search remote NuGet packages for JSON?
It should work, yeah.
And then I could find, I think it's Newtonsoft actually,
Soft, yeah, exactly, yep.
because that's our buddy there, Newtonsoft.
Yeah. Yeah, he's there. He should be there, yep. I was searching for this earlier, and I think there might be some hiccups on the remote filtering on NuGet.org right now.
Is it everyone but Newtonsoft? Is that what's going on? Are we hitting the everyone but Newtonsoft thing? So let me ask you this. Let's try this. Rather than doing it from the command line, which appears to be having some kind of a...
Yeah, Package Manager console will show it appropriately. Yep.
Well, I can do it 3 different ways, couldn't I? I can do it here, right?
Manage NuGet. Well,
not add reference, pardon
manage
me.
NuGet
Manage
packages,
NuGet. Thank
right?
you, sir.
Yep.
And I think it's probably a very popular one, so it should show up.
Yeah, it'll show up right at the top of this list for sure. Yep. But on the querying in particular, we have some server-side bugs that will be resolved.
So this is new. It shows me the latest stable, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I can pick that one, and let's see. If I hit preview, it'll tell me what it's going to do, and it'll also show me that it has no dependencies. If I hit install now, where is that going to show up?
It should show up in this file.
Oh, look at that. That showed up here.
Okay, see what I was saying about how sometimes Visual Studio is trying to be smart for you? So this is one of the cases where...
Is this not a smart thing it did?
I don't know. I'd have to actually look at that package.
I see, but it basically said, here's the core version of that. Yeah. Right. Here's the core version of that. But that's pretty cool.
Yep.
So one other interesting thing with regards to NuGet that maybe I could have you speak to while you're here, and I'm going to just put this back the way it was. There we go. Break as few things as possible here. This is no doubt completely broken at this point. Let's see if this thing still runs. Everything's a NuGet package now, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
So if this is still running, here we go. If I went up here to github/ASP.NET/MVC, right, here's the source code for MVC, and I went to the branch here, and put in, say, beta, because I'm on beta, right? And then said download zip, and downloaded this stuff. Then I could take my MVC zip file, this beta file here, right?
Yep.
And inside this is the source code. That's the actual source and all the tests, by the way, too. Could I go like this? Basically, open up my folder for my project in Explorer here, and then just basically take MVC and stick it over here.
Right. Yeah, then it should. Yep.
But all this here is this is all NuGet though, right? I'm asking for NuGet packages of
NuGet. Yeah. So the concept, we wanted to kind of bleed the concept of a NuGet package and a project, and we want to make these things to be equivalent. Where wherever you're using a NuGet package, you should be able to replace that with a project. Yep. So even though those things look like NuGet packages, you're never actually declaring, hey, this is in a NuGet package. You're just declaring what is the dependency, and then the resolver will figure out, is it a NuGet package or is it an actual source project?
So when I said dependencies here on line 5, I didn't say NuGets.
NuGet package, right.
But I kind of do, though, in the sense of even a folder can be a NuGet package. And when you pack this thing up, it becomes a NuGet package. It's NuGets all the way down.
Yeah, exactly. Like shared library is at the bottom of that list, I think, and that's a project reference. Or that was my project that I had it. But yeah, if you had a regular project reference, it would just show up right next to the NuGet packages.
Right. So now I've got MVC itself.
Yep.
Just sitting here. So if I understand correctly, let's say that I didn't like something in Microsoft ASP.NET Diagnostics, or perhaps something broke, or I found a cool bug.
Right.
I could bring that down locally.
And you didn't add every one of those projects to your solution.
Yeah.
Those were added by the resolver, basically. You copied
Automatically.
the files, and then you probably modified project.json, and then when it reloaded it, it said, oh, this is a project now. Let me go and load the project.
Yep,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yep, that's right.
And then one last thing that we want to hit as we head out here, we saw the server-side stuff,
Right.
NuGet. Let's look a little bit just briefly at the client-side stuff. These are other package managers. So here we've got dependencies, Bower, which is a place where we get client-side JavaScript, right?
Yep.
And then NPM, where we get tools and things like that. And then in some cases, also packages.
Yep.
If I go to bower.json, this is kind of like packages.json, isn't it?
It is, right. Yep, and we've got some really nice IntelliSense here as well.
Yeah, it's telling me where it came from.
Exactly.
I can even go here. This blew me away. I can say open home page in browser.
Yep, and some of this I think is coming from Web Essentials. I'm not sure what.
I know this pretty bird is
that's
coming from Web Essentials.
So yeah, definitely. I think it's a good idea to install Web Essentials anyways, but yeah, definitely for the folks that's out here, if you see something that you don't see in your own build, go and install Web Essentials.
Right, Web Essentials is kind of our labs. And then the last thing we wanted to talk a little bit about was Grunt, which is kind of like, would you say, MS Build for the client.
Exactly, right.
And what I think is really particularly nice is, here's your Grunt file that says, hey, I'm going to go and lay out my www root, and I'm going to minify my JavaScript and my CSS, and minify my CSS. This is your client-side build that preps your CSS and your JavaScript.
Right.
But you, as an MS Build person, appreciate this. I could go here and say, bind this client-side build thing to something on the server side. So basically, when MS Build's done building, run this task.
Right, yeah.
It's a really nice integration.
I think right now it's more Visual Studio versus MS Build, but yeah, we'll get to the MS Build part later.
Okay, so right now that binding is a Visual Studio-ism?
Right.
Does that go in the kproj?
No, it actually goes as a comment in the grunt file. So that, because keep in mind, Visual Studio may or may not be in the picture.
Oh, that's a good point. Right. I think this is really a nice integration, though, to be able to do that. So we've got the Task Runner Explorer that lets you get to Grunt from inside of the Visual Studio tooling.
And then did you explain how these are kicked off? So go back into project.json, and then there's a scripts section here.
Yep, there it is, right there. Pardon me.
That's the glue, in case anybody was wondering. So that's how, if you have people that are doing command line scenarios like KPM pack, they automatically get called. And
I noticed that when you did a restore, it also called npm install, which is their restore.
Exactly right. Yep. So that's how it's kind of glued together. So there's no magic here. Yep.
Very cool. All right. We learned all sorts of great tooling and fun stuff for ASP.NET 5.
We did, I think. Yeah, totally.
Thanks for spending the hour with us.
Sure, yeah, thanks. It's great being here.
We will be right back after a short break with even more here on Microsoft Virtual Academy. Hey, 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 we are back. We are still the Microsoft Virtual Academy. And this time, though, we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We've got Louis Desjardins. Thank you very much for coming. And we're going to look at some of the internals of .NET, ASP.NET 5. Let's go to the slides and start my timer for me there. So, Louis, you're a principal software engineer, and you're focusing on ASP.NET 5 and the kind of the core runtime that makes it all happen.
Yeah, it happened for a little bit now. This is something that was quite a long time coming. You've probably seen the momentum building towards this type of direction. It's kind of like phase shift of the technology. Mm-hmm. And so the last year, there has been pretty busy inside buildings at Redmond, getting all these pieces to come together. And it's amazing how much technology has really clicked together in just the last year. It's kind of amazing to see everything that's always worked in the past start to light up on a completely different CLR.
Mm-hmm. And it really is a completely different CLR. Like you're changing the brain, while the person is still walking.
Changing the brain from carbon to silicon without hopefully a person noticing. So .NET is able to run on the core CLR now, which is a completely different build of largely the same language and runtime, but it's completely self-contained and has no overlap with the desktop CLR in terms of what files are used at runtime or necessary.
Not to mention that we also just happened to switch compilers during this entire little event as well. They called it the big switch as we went from the regular C# compiler to Roslyn. So there's that as well to think about.
Oh yeah, and that's also something that the team that does that has done an amazing job also. The compatibility bar that they have to hit in order to even consider doing something like that is tremendous. And at the end of the day, it really is kind of seamless. It does, if anything, unlock more scenarios. For example, if you don't want to compile all of your code in advance, you can compile it on the fly, which makes the use of views more, more first class, because everything can be compiled on the fly. But class libraries as well. You don't need to have everything compiled to a DLL before your program starts running. So both modes are available. Both ways of running as DLL or as source are available. But it just opens up those options that are available on other languages too.
As he takes a sip, I'll remind you that he worked actually on Dow Jones and Marketplace, and he had a bunch of big stuff, MarketWatch, and you also created Spark. That was kind of like your initial claim to fame. A lot of people in the community were really a fan of the Spark view engine.
Oh yeah. That one was kind of that one predated Razor a little bit. It was where their MVC was coming out. It had the ability to add pluggable view engines, and web forms was the only syntax that was available in MVC, so it kind of created a vacuum that made an opening for open source to become popular. When Razor came out, Spark was really kind of the need for it wasn't as much. So at the moment, it's kind of a lot of people still like it, but it's very niche.
But there are some incredibly large sites that we cannot name that people probably use all the time that use Spark.
Oh yeah. People who like it still love it.
Yeah. Very cool. And I am still me, and there's still a random slide with me on it, so enjoy that. And all right, cool. Let's talk about some things now. We'll probably spend a little more time at the command line, but I want to understand as much as what's going on internally around the hosting runtime as we can. So please educate me.
Sure. Well, I suppose the first thing, like you say, we can take a look at is the command line, starting with our favorite, command prompt. Our favorite command, kvm. I suppose should speak briefly about, never mind that. Should speak briefly about the different commands and what the responsibilities are. And of course, names are in flux, so everything is coming in very quickly.
So it's called K because there was originally a thing called Katana, right? And then Project K.
Oh, actually, I think it's the...
Is that why it's called K? Or is it just a letter we had a free...
I think it's a letter. It's a letter that hasn't been used yet. I think so. Yeah.
I just assumed. I think a lot of us just saw the K and we said, oh, this must be Katana.
Well, I mean, it's an assumption you can make. It doesn't really build a lot on that, other than a lot of the concepts incubated there. Other than incubation, though, it's largely a thing on its own. I don't know if you've heard, is Project N a public term?
Project N, I think, is what they called .NET Native before,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Another example of, that's a nice letter. Let's use that letter.
Exactly. Yep. So letter-based programming. And in this case, we're starting off with the letter K.
Okay.
So everything that starts with K is going to be related to this particular runtime.
Okay.
The first thing you're going to need before you can do any programming is a SDK, which gets you the ability to compile things and run them in the runtime as well as the dev time tooling.
Okay.
In order to make it as easy as possible to bootstrap your system, we've provided a single command line that has two jobs. Its first job is to download the K runtime environment, and the second job is to let you pick between the ones that you have downloaded.
Oh, so this will download it too if you want.
Oh, yeah. As you can see, if you type kvm, that'll bring up the help. And really the two commands you need to know are kvm install and kvm use. So kvm install, like you just alluded to, is basically the downloader. And if it's already installed, it won't do anything. But we can ask for the AMD64. I don't think I've installed this one yet.
Wow, it really is going and getting it.
Yeah.
In that case, what's it say?
In this case, it says...
Not found.
Oh, we might not have internet. This might be an interesting demo. So, if it was available, it would be basically saying that it's downloaded it.
Oh, and you could put yourself on MS Open if you want to.
No, it'll be fine.
Okay.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So, what it's doing is downloading the SDK and unzipping it. You can see the location it unzips it to. is right in your user profile directory.
Right, we saw
So
that.
so that you don't need to be administrator to get started, and you don't need to make a permanent commitment on your machine. It hasn't changed the registry or done an MSI yet. We'll have those available, but to get started, all you have to do is say kvm install and choose a version, and then it is in your user profile.
And speaking of a lack of commitment, I noticed that it put it in the path, but just for this one process as well.
Yeah. Yep. That's what KVM uses for. So if we